Are you ready to outdrive the competition? I'll show you how to get to victory lane in this How to Play video. Thank you for joining me at Tantrum House Studio D. I'm Melissa Delp. Victory Lane is a card-driven stock car racing game for 1 to 8 players that takes about 45 minutes to play. It's designed by Richard Launius, who also created Thunder Rolls, and it's coming to Kickstarter. This is a sponsored video. Also, Kevin and I have been involved in the development of this game, so we've played it many, many times. The game and the rules I'm using in this video are in prototype form, so some of the design, components, and terminology could change. In this video, I'm going to give a broad look at the game flow and the rules so you can have a good idea of how the game plays. The video has timestamps so you can easily navigate to the different sections. Now, I am starting with the setup, which you might be tempted to skip. I know I sometimes do. But there are actually several game decisions that happen in this step, so you might want to keep watching. Place the sideboard on the table and place the flag card, green flag facing up, in its spot. Next, choose which race to run. The race card determines track setup, race length, and special rules. I'm using Boardwalk 90. The race length is 2 stages with 40 laps and 50 laps. The board setup uses track pieces 1A and 2A. Special rules involve the High Line. Now each player chooses a team card to represent their primary car in the race. They also gain the matching car token and colored die. Unchosen team cards are flipped to the opposite side and become non-player drivers, NPDs. You always play with all 8 cards. NPDs are distributed based on your player count. When playing with 2, 3, or 4 players, deal NPD cards evenly to the players to run as their teammates, and place remaining cards by the flagman to represent rogue drivers. When playing with 5 or more players, all NPDs are rogue drivers. Place the matching car tokens and dice with the NPD cards. Place the lapped tokens in a supply pile near the board. Place the scoring board on the table and all the team scoring tokens on the 0 space. Prepare the cards by shuffling the laps cards and placing them on their space on the sideboard. Shuffle the action cards and deal 5 to each player. Place the remaining cards on their space on the sideboard. Now you're ready for the final setup step, qualifying. This is a major game decision, so I'm going to explain it in detail. Qualifying determines the starting order of the cars on the track, and qualifying has 4 steps. First, you can improve your hand by discarding an action card and drawing a new one. This is optional. The action cards have a stopwatch icon that is used only for qualifying. The lower the number, the better the qualifying result. Next, each player secretly chooses one of their action cards to represent their qualifying speed and places it face down on their team card. This card will not be able to be used for the action. It will be discarded after qualifying is finished. The third step is to deal each NPD a face-down action card to represent their qualifying speed. Finally, you simultaneously reveal all the qualifying cards and line up the car tokens from lowest qualifying number to highest. When it's your turn to place your primary car or NPD on the grid, you can choose the frontmost empty slot in either of the central main groove lines. After placing all the cars, each player orients their own team cards, primary and NPDs, from left to right, from best starting position to worst. Finally, give the start player token to the player who controls the car in the best starting position, either their primary car or NPD. Ignore the positions of rogue NPDs when determining start player. Now that everything's set up and you have your starting position, it's time to get in the driver's seat. Each race in Victory Lane is played over a number of stages, 1, 2, or 3, and each stage has multiple rounds, represented by the laps cards. I'm going to give the general flow of the race in this section and then talk about specifics later. Each round has 3 phases: the laps phase, the driver phase, and the race status phase. To begin each round in a stage, you draw a laps card. The card shows how many laps are represented by that round. Most laps cards are 10 laps. In addition to the number of laps, the card details events for that round. Follow the instructions from top to bottom and then add the card to the laps display so all the lap values are visible. Then the driver phase starts. Beginning with the start player, each player will activate all of the cars they control, starting with the team card in the leftmost spot of their player area. For your primary car, play an action card from your hand and follow the instructions. You do not draw another card unless the action card tells you to. For an NPD you control, roll the matching die and activate at least 50% of the actions on the corresponding line. I'll talk about player actions and activating NPDs in more detail later in the video. After the first player finishes their turn, the player to their right takes the next turn. The counterclockwise turn order simulates the driving direction in stock car racing. Once all the players have taken a turn, it's time to activate rogue NPDs, if there are any in your game. The player whose primary car is the farthest back in running order gets to activate the rogue NPDs. By now, every car should have been activated once and the driver phase ends. In the race status phase, you check to see how many laps total have been run compared to the number of laps for the current stage. For Boardwalk 90, the first stage is 40 laps. If the number of laps indicated on all the drawn laps cards is fewer than 40, you complete another round, going through the laps phase, driver phase, and race status phase. Do not pass the first player token. If the number of laps is equal to or greater than the stage amount, 40 in this specific race, the stage is over. Flip the green flag card to the yellow and perform the instructions. For an early stage, you'll assign stage points to the top 4 finishers, and then there's an opportunity to pit for new cards before starting the next stage. Shuffle the drawn laps cards back into the laps deck and shuffle the discarded action cards back into the action deck. If it's the final stage, you'll assign race end points and the player with the most points is declared the winner. That was a broad look at the game flow, but there's still a lot more to understand before playing the game. In this next section, I'm covering the driver phase more completely. Basically, what you do on your turn with your primary car and NPDs. For your primary car, you have 3 options on your turn. Play an action card, which is what you're going to do on most turns. Green flag pit for more cards, or run on fumes. Here's a look at some of the action cards and how you perform the maneuvers. The cards show your movement amount, usually 1 or 2 spaces, and a special action or maneuver. When you must move into a forward adjacent space, directly in front, forward to the right or left. You can push a car directly in front of you in your same lane to enter that space, but you and any cars you pushed must roll a risk test to see if you crash. I'll explain risk tests later. Here are what some of the actions look like. Crossover. Before or after you move 1 space, you can swap places with a forward adjacent car. Side draft. Before or after you move 1 car that is sideways adjacent backward 1 space. Any cars directly behind that car also move back. 2 cards give you the draft ability. When you draft, you must have at least 1 car directly in front of or behind you in the same lane. Then the entire line of cars moves forward 1 space. Some cards, like Highline Speed, give you bonuses based on your track position. If you end your move on the high line, you get an extra movement. The action on the Great Move card has to be done after you move one space. You can swap places with up to 2 cars in your same lane that are directly in front of you. No empty spaces. There are other action cards, but the action should be easy to understand. If you don't like the cards in your hand, or if you don't have any cards left, you can decide to pit instead of playing a card. You move your race car laterally to the closest pit stall. The number of cards you draw determines where you return to the racetrack. For 1 card, you return next to the pit box, into the space the arrow points to. For 2 cards, you move back 1 pit box and then return to the track. To draw 4 cards, you move back 2 pit boxes and return to the track. If a car is blocking the space you would enter, move backward in that lane until there is an empty spot. Your hand limit is a maximum of 4 cards. If you have more in your hand, discard down to 4. If you don't have any cards in your hand and you don't want to pit, you can push your luck and try to run on fumes. Roll a die. On a 5 or 6, you draw the top card of the action deck and play it. If you roll a 4 or less, you go backward 3 spaces. So those are the 3 options you can choose with your primary car. In some games, you'll also control a non-player driver, NPD. Here are some clarifications for activating NPDs. When you roll to activate an NPD, you must perform at least 50% of the actions on the corresponding line, if you're able to. That's at least 1 action for a line with 2 options and at least 2 actions for a line with 3 options. If you'd like to, you can choose to perform all of the actions on the line. Usually, you want to perform NPD actions in a way that benefits your primary car and hinders the other player's cars. But you may be forced to negatively impact your primary car to fulfill the 50% rule. For example, your car is the only one available to cross over or side draft. When there are rogue NPDs in play, the player whose primary car is farthest behind after everyone has taken their turn will activate the first rogue. If there is more than 1 rogue, reassess which player is farthest back between each rogue activation. NPDs have special rules for green flag pitting. When the 5th laps card is drawn in a stage, the NPDs will not activate that round. Leave them on the track in their current position. Players' primary cars can interact with the NPDs, but the NPDs will not take a turn. As the cars are racing and interacting with each other on track, there are opportunities for crashes. Certain events and actions will require players to perform risk tests. Here are some examples and rules. When a car uses movement to push another car in its lane, the pushing car and all the cars it pushed have to roll a die. If adjacent cars roll the same number, those cars crash and move directly backward 2 spaces. Players can exhaust their team card to re-roll once. NPDs can never re-roll. A player refreshes their re-roll when they pit. Maneuvers like draft, side draft, and crossover do not trigger risk tests. Some event cards will require players to roll dice and receive benefits or penalties based on the roll. The Big Run action card allows players to push their luck by moving additional spaces. If you roll higher than your extra movement, you succeed. If you roll equal to or lower, you move backward double the number of spaces. So for an extra move of 2, if you roll a 1 or 2, you move back 4 spaces. You've probably noticed that the track is not a circle. As the cars advance, you'll eventually reach the end of a board. When a car would move off the track, pick up the back track board and place it in front of the other board, sliding them both backward to align with the sideboard. Then place move over tokens on each car that had been on the back board. These tokens represent cars that are in danger of being lapped by the leader. Their running position is actually behind all of the cars on the new backboard. If the lead car passes a car with a move over token, flip the token to the lapped side. Lapped tokens can be flipped back to the move over side if the car passes the leader. Move tokens are removed when cars move off of the front board and join the backboard. The next big concept I want to cover is what happens at the end of a stage. You'll either have a yellow flag if it's not the final stage, or a checkered flag if it is the final stage. In either case, line the cars up in their relative positions 1st through 8th. Cars with move over tokens are behind cars without tokens. Lapped cars are placed at the back of the track, behind all the other cars. Cars that are tied, running side by side, roll to determine position. The higher roll lines up before the lower roll. If the rolls match, the cars crash and move backward 2 spaces. If they are still tied, they continue rolling until positions are determined. Players can use an available re-roll to re-roll their own die. If it's not the final stage, award stage points to the first 4 cars. 3 points, 2 points, 1 point, and 1 point. Shuffle the drawn laps cards back into the laps deck and shuffle the discarded action cards into the action deck. Then, in line order, players decide if their cars will pit. This is the main way to draw new cards. NPDs must pit. If a car is pitting, place it in the frontmost empty pit box. Cars that do not pit will line up behind the start-finish line, keeping their respective order to each other. Once all cars have been placed in pit boxes and/or the starting grid, follow these steps. Players in the pits decide how many cards they would like to draw for their primary car by secretly setting their die to the appropriate number, 1 through 6. Then they simultaneously reveal their dice by placing them on their cars and draw the corresponding number of cards. Players will need to discard down to their hand limit of 4 cards before the next stage begins. Next, roll a die for each NPD and place the die on the matching cars. If a roll is less than 3, change the die value to 3. All the cars in the pits should now have dice on them. Each pit box has a modifier that either decreases the die value, increases it, or keeps it the same. Change the dice based on the modifiers. The final step is to line the cars up on the starting grid. Make sure the track tile with the starting grid is the backmost tile. Cars leave the pits from lowest die value to highest. Ties are broken by cars farther ahead in the pit lane. Cars that pitted will line up behind any cars that stayed out and did not pit. If any cars were lapped, they remove their lap token and start in the backmost spaces on the starting grid. Those spaces are marked with the word lapped. Give the start player token to the player who controls the frontmost starting car. This will be the first car that did not pit, or, if every car pitted, the first car that exited the pits. If necessary, players should reorder the primary and NPD cards in their player area to reflect the position of their cards, frontmost on the left. Now you're ready to start the next stage, following the structure of laps phase, driver phase, and race status phase for each round. When you complete the final stage of a race, line up the cars based on their finishing position and award points based on the end of race scoring scale. Add the points to any that were awarded in previous stages. I want to take a quick look at the race cards and the laps cards and describe how they can affect the game. The race cards affect the overall feel of the game, its length, which track boards you use, and special rules you apply. Super speedways often enhance drafting and line energy. Short tracks might allow you to push and pass. Make sure all the players know the specific information for the selected race before they choose their qualifying card. The laps cards affect the game round to round with helpful or harmful events. Resolve the events from top to bottom. Rewards are optional, but penalties are mandatory. Most laps cards are 10 laps. So in a 50-lap stage, you will most likely play 5 rounds and need 5 action cards. But your hand limit is 4, so you may need to make a green flag pit stop or use an action card that lets you draw a card. But racing is unpredictable, and the stage could have more or fewer rounds. In the deck, there is one 20 laps card, which would decrease the number of rounds, and one 5 laps card, which would increase the number of rounds. There is also a rain showers card that will cause a caution the first time it is drawn. Flip the green flag card to the yellow flag side and follow the instructions. If the rain showers card is drawn again during the race, it could end the race immediately. Just like real race teams, will you gamble that the race gets cut short or that it goes the distance? The final thing I want to mention is playing a championship season. Players use the same primary car each race, and the NPDs are dealt randomly each race, like normal. You can use the included score sheet to keep track of a full season. Run the races in order from top to bottom, keeping track of the victories and scores. The player with the most points at the end of the season is crowned the champion. Thanks for watching this How to Play video for Victory Lane. If you'd like to see the game in action, we'll have a playthrough on our channel with designer Richard Launius. We'll try our best to beat him at his own game and end up in Victory Lane.